This is Channel 7 News.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Pesolano, your news director, bringing you the 4:30 afternoon report here on Channel 7 News. I hope everyone's doing well. We have some major updates going on in the Middle East with the Iran war conflicts. We're going to dive right into that. We also have some local news ahead this afternoon, as well with the weather. So let's get started on our top story with Iran and what's going on with that. We are currently in the 12th day of the war. Here is a key overview of how developments are intensifying in the Middle East. The U.S. forces have launched heavy strikes recently targeting multiple Iranian mine-laying vessels near the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. casualties in regional attacks. The Pentagon confirmed that approximately 140 U.S. service members have been wounded since the conflict began. In related regional violence, a major U.S. diplomatic facility in Baghdad was recently targeted by a drone assault. Evacuations are in order. The State Department has authorized up to $40 million in emergency funds to charter flights to evacuate Americans from the Middle East amid the escalating violence. Now, in the other major national headlines we have later on today are the autonomous vehicle regulations. Transportation Secretary Senator Duffy is hosting the first ever National AV Safety Forum today to discuss the commercial deployment safety standards and regulation of self-driving vehicles and robo-taxis, as well as the Georgia special election. The closely watched special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress is officially heading to run off between Republican Clay Fuller and Democrat Sean Harris. We also have a story coming up with the election locally in Opelika, Florida. So we're going to dive a little deeper here with the Iran war conflict and get more into detail with that here. Today's main story regarding the Iran war, originally initiative designed to position Iran as a central transit hub for neighbors to reach international waters today. Reports indicate that this transit strategy has been effectively dismantled by the ongoing conflict. Today's major developments, the most intense strikes to date. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated that today is expected to be the most intense day of strikes on Iranian territory yet. The Pentagon claims that Iran's missile launch capacity has been degraded by roughly 90% since the start of Operation Epic Fury. Targeting the Strait of Hormuz, a critical component of the Iran way is control over the Strait of Hormuz. Today, the U.S. military reported destroying 116 Iranian mine-laying boats near the strait to prevent Iran from blocking the waterway. This follows reports that Iran preparing to deploy naval mines to retaliate against U.S. and Israeli strikes. The redeployment are diplomatic and sporting isolation. The geopolitical way forward for Iran has hit a wall. The World Cup withdrawal. Iran has officially stated it will not play in the 2026 World Cup following the escalation of U.S. strikes. This comes despite earlier comments from FIFA suggesting they were still welcome to compete. Internal leadership. Amid reports of injuries to the new supreme leader, Mahjabi Khamenei, regime officials have spent the day insisting he is safe and sound, even as strikes began to hit residential buildings in Taiwan. The global energy shock in Iran right now, because the Iran way transit routes are now active war zones. The International Energy Association, IEA, took the historic step today of releasing 400 million barrels of oil from reserves, the largest release in history. to combat surging prices and the shutdown of shipping in the Gulf. Now, moving ahead to election news today, over in Opelika for the mayor, it was confirmed that there will be a runoff. In a surprising turn of events, incumbent Mayor Brian Nelson has been ousted, finishing third in a three-way race because no candidate reached the required 50% majority. The race is heading off to a runoff April 14, 2026. The match-off, Nicholas L. Nesta, who led 41.6%, will face Christine Rowe, who won by 31.8%. The drama of the race, heavily impacted by a residency lawsuit filed by Nelson against Moore just before the election. Despite Nelson's efforts to have her disqualified, voters chose to move forward with Moore and Nesta. Now, in the city council seats, while the mayor's race continues, several city council seats were decided today. Seat 1 challenger Sam Roof unseated incumbent Alexander Smith in a close race, winning with 51.3% of the vote. Seat 2 incumbent Diana Vasquez successfully defended her seat against her two challengers, winning decisively with 57.9%. For seat 4, Yanessa Jesse Barron won the open seat with 51.2%, defeating Michaela Harrison. For charter amendments and government structure, Opelika voters also weighed in on one question: a pivotal referendum regarding the city's power structure. Result: voters rejected to proposal to switch a council merger form of government. The outcome: the means will remain its strong mayor structure, which has been in place for 143 years. The mayor will continue to act as the city's chief executive, rather than hiring a professional city manager. If you are an Opelika resident, mark your calendar for Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. That is when you will need to head back to the polls to choose between Nicholas Nesta and Christina Moore for your next mayor. And that was our Opelika segment. Now we're going to head over into Georgia and take a look at their special elections for the U.S. District 14. As you can see here, we have Republican Clay Fuller and Democrat Sean Harris, which are running together. Yesterday, March 10th, 2026, was a major day for Georgia politics as voters headed to the polls for several special elections, most notably the race to fill the seat vacated by Marjorie Taylor Greene in the 14th Congressional District. Since no candidate secured over 14% of the vote in the crowded 17-candidate field, the race is officially heading to a runoff on April 7, 2026. The matchup: Democrat Sean Harris, a retired Army Brigadier General, will face the Republican Clay Fuller, a former district attorney who received the endorsement of President Donald Trump. The numbers: Harris led the first round with roughly 37.3% of the vote, while Fuller followed closely with 34.9%. The stakes: the winner will serve the remainder of Greene's term through January 2027. Interestingly, many of these candidates are also running in the May 19th primary for full two-year terms starting in 2027, marking the start of a long election marathon in Northwest Georgia. So that concludes our news segment for this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get these stories pulled up, and then I also have another story I want to pull up after that, and then I'm going to get the weather going for you guys.
This is Channel 7 News. This is Channel 7 News.
We're back here on Channel 7 News with Tony Pesolano, your news director. Moving to our next story with Transportation Secretary. We have now a major federal development of new regulatory petitions on autonomous vehicle safety form in Washington. Now, our U.S. Transportation Secretary, Shane Duffy, who spoke today. Today's key developments were calls for streamlined regulations. Secretary Duffy signaled a major push to update the rules of the road to match 21st century technology. Specifically, he questioned the necessity of traditional design requirements like steering wheels, gas pedals, and windshield wipers for fully autonomous vehicles. The goal is to lower production costs and accelerate the deployment of American-made AVs. The Zoox exemption petition. In a significant move today, Zoox, owned by Amazon, formally petitioned the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration for temporary exemptions from 8 different federal motor vehicle safety standards. The goal, they want to operate passenger cars without traditional manual components like mirrors, wipers that aren't necessary for their sensor-heavy, purpose-built robo-taxis. The next step, well, the public now has until April 10th to comment on the petition before a final decision has been made. During today's forum, there will be a heavy emphasis on ensuring the U.S. leads in the tech to stay competitive against foreign markets. Secretary Duffy specifically backed American-made AVs over technology from rivals like China, framing the regulation of self-driving cars as a matter of national security and economic leadership. Ongoing legislative context. While today focused on the DOT and NHTSAF's executive actions, it's worth noting that the Self-Drive Act of 2026, H.R. 790, is currently moving through the House. This bill aims to expand the authority to create safety standards specifically for AIDS-dedicated vehicle, replace the patchwork of state laws with a single federal framework to make it easier for companies to scale nationwide, mandate safety cases where manufacturers must prove with data that their systems are safe before they hit the road. Not everyone is on board yet, though. The Owner and Operator Independent Drivers Association, OOIDA, formally used Congress yesterday to reject Self-Drive Act, citing major concerns over cybersecurity and the safety of 80,000-pound driverless trucks. And that concludes our afternoon news segment here on STTV. I'm going to go ahead and get our radar, weather, and temperatures pulled up here right now. And that concludes our live segment this afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. Sincerely from Channel 7, STTV, I'm Tony Pesolano, your news director, reporting this afternoon.
This is Channel 7 News.